Alright, in this video we're going to talk about Newton's first law. So Newton's first law is pretty straightforward. It tells us that an object at rest will stay at rest and an object in motion will stay in motion unless a force acts on it. And really, if we specify here, this has to be an unbalanced set of forces or a single force. Alright, so an object in motion will stay in motion and an object in rest will stay at rest unless there's an unbalanced force acting on it. So Newton's first law is also called the law of inertia. So inertia is a quality that all matter has, and it's the tendency of objects to resist changes in motion. Alright, so tendency means something that things usually do, or well, in this case they will do, but they tend to, or they will do. So inertia is the tendency of objects to resist changes in motion. So objects aren't going to change their motion unless something makes them. In this case, an unbalanced force has to be that something that makes them change their motion. Alright, so basically, to sum up Newton's first law, it tells us that things are going to stay doing what they're doing unless a force makes them do otherwise. Alright, so if we think of some applications of Newton's first law here, we could think, why does a football not keep traveling in the air forever when it's thrown? What makes it change its motion? If you throw a football with a certain speed in a certain direction, it changes eventually, right? Football, it's not like you throw the football and it goes into outer space or something, right? So what makes the football change its motion? And also, if you set a box outside and then come back later and find it in a different place, what can you conclude in terms of Newton's first law? Alright, so based on Newton's first law that we just talked about, think about these two questions, pause the video, try and come up with an answer, and come back for the solution. Alright, so for the first one here, why does a football not keep traveling in the air forever while it's thrown? Well, that tells us that there must be forces acting on it. So if we have a football here, really bad football, but if we have a football and we throw it and it's going, eventually it's going to change its trajectory down towards the ground. Right? And so the reason this is because the force of gravity acts on the football. Alright, we could also say that air resistance might slow the football down. So as it goes through the air, all the air molecules get bumped into by the football, and those will slow it down as well. Alright, so there are forces that act on the football, unbalanced forces that act on the football that cause it to eventually stop moving, hit the ground, whatever it might do. Alright, so Newton's first law tells us that an object isn't going to change its motion unless something makes it. So as the football is flying through the air, some force has to be acting on it that's going to keep it from continuing its motion as it was. Alright, so the second question here, if we set a box outside and come back and it's in a different place, what can we conclude in terms of Newton's first law? Well, if the box was sitting outside, it would keep sitting outside unless there was an unbalanced force acting on it. That's what Newton's first law would tell us. So if we set the box outside and it's in a different place, we can conclude there must have been an unbalanced force that acted on that box in the time that we were away. Alright, so things are going to stay at rest. If they're at rest, they're going to stay at rest unless a force acts on them. That kind of is what we talked about in the second question here. And if things are in motion, they're going to stay in motion, in the same motion, unless a force acts on them. So that's what we talked about here. So an object in motion will stay in motion, an object in rest will stay at rest unless we have unbalanced forces acting on them. Alright, so that's about it for Newton's first law. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.